So your team doesn't have 5 All-Stars. They're not in first place, and they don't have the first pick of the most money to spend in next week's draft. Can't relate.
You are Locked On Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show today. Today's episode of Locked On Your Team /show, Locked On Guardians, is brought to you by Tax Network USA. Did you know that it's never too late to resolve your tax issues with the IRS? Don't wait. Reduce your tax debt and get help from a team of licensed professionals. Call 1-800-549-1000 or tnusa.com/locked on. I'm just going to adjust this a little. I felt like I was not quite in center view. I think I shifted my seat. For those who do not know me, hey, you might have heard me on WTAM on Sunday, but thank you for joining us. I'm Jeff Ellis, one of the co-hosts of Locked On Guardians. Before this, I was a lead draft and prospect analyst nationally at Scoutin' 24/7. Before that, I was your fifth favorite blogger at every Cleveland sports blog that has ever existed, never will exist, as well as an occasional contributor to Prospects Live.
Jeff, you are always number one on my list for all things Guardians related. I am Justin Latta. I'm covering the Guardians minor league system since 2007 at places like Guardians Baseball Insider, News Herald, The Morning Journal, and other places as well. This is going to be a fun show. We got a lot going on today on Locked On Guardians, and we appreciate you guys making us your first listen wherever you get podcasts. We're free everywhere. You can get us on YouTube if you really want to see our shining faces. Guardians have 5 All-Stars. We're going to get into that. We talked about wanting to get into the draft today, and obviously that's kind of where our focus is off the air right now in terms of it being next week, but a lot over the weekend to talk about in terms of All-Stars, another series victory for the Guardians. Spencer Howard is here. Logan Allen is in AAA. We have to get into that. We've been texting about Angel Martinez. We've been texting about other stuff. You were on WTM on Sunday night talking about trades and stuff like that. So we have a lot to get into today. We'll see how far we can get. We do promise a heavy draft presence, I think, the rest of the week as we kind of plot out where coverage goes there.
I also did an in-depth podcast with the guys over on Southside Sox, right? Isn't that what it is with James Fox? So check out my Twitter if you want even more draft content. We talk about the White Sox and the Guardians plans because, it's a funny thing. Last year, you and I made a list of guys who played very well in the Cape. And the White Sox and Guardians went heavy on that. Guys like Eddie Park and Rico Nishida, who you and I both thought could be Guardians guys. Nishida, by the way, is killing it. I don't know if you've paid attention. He's already out playing his draft position. But the White Sox and the Guardians are very similar nowadays. So it was a fun conversation.
I
so if you want more content.
Some people tell me the Cape doesn't matter. Some people tell me the Cape doesn't matter, Jeff.
I know. People want things to... Well, it's always funny, too. Like, I appreciate all the discourse online. And it's great that people care about this. As much as they do.
We want them to care.
But I always appreciate, like, I was having a discussion with a young gentleman who was like, hey, that Cape data doesn't matter. It's small sample size. And then he sent me the small sample size of data when Condon and Bazana were facing conference teams that made the postseason. I'm like, that's even smaller than the Cape data for it's like it's always about making things fit your narrative. I know people
we all want our opinions
agree with that
for sure,
but like we all do that. Like, there's that the stuff there. It's like once you make an opinion, that's all of it. And it's always interesting. Most people are kind, and I enjoyed the interactions. I do want to give a shout out because he is an everydayer, and he complained that he's still waiting on it. Jake D6746 is one of our everydayers. Join him. Make sure you're listening every day, rating and reviewing, downloading, commenting. Smash that like button and hit the thumbs up, right? That's what I'm supposed to say.
That's who we are over here. Yeah, we do that all the time.
I can put up my hood. Maybe that's more the look with that is hat and hood.
No cats, no ladies. I don't know. That's going to go against the algorithm. I don't know. What's not going against the algorithm, though, is the Guardians have 5 All-Stars. It's Jeff's favorite subject. It's the All-Star week. Even Jeff, who's not a big fan of the All-Star game, and he's gone if you're watching on YouTube. I think even Jeff, you'd appreciate that this team has 5 All-Stars, and they deserve it because they're playing well. They're in first place, and it's I don't want to say improbable, but it's just unbelievable the way things have gone. We talked last week about how Stephen Kwan turned into an All-Star. We gave Jose Ramirez his flowers for that, and then Sunday we learned that Emmanuel Clase made the All-Star game, which really wasn't a shock.
If that's shocking to you, I think you got an interesting life,
right? Yeah, and then Josh Naylor made it, which we weren't really sure of. Josh Naylor had better numbers a year ago in terms of just overall average and on base. A little more power this year. Obviously, he's already eclipsed his home run total from a year ago. So clearly that is what matters. And I believe reserves are still picked by the coaches and the other players.
Yeah.
So that just tells you that the other teams respect Josh Naylor and what he does.
Yeah. I thought it was interesting because if you look on the National League side of things, Philadelphia had, the most representatives, and they got Jeff Hoffman, who's a great story because he was a bust for so long. And then Matt Strahm, who's a guy I've loved, both made it. Our equivalent of those guys is Hunter Gaddis. Hunter Gaddis has a higher award than Clase right now. I loved seeing annoyed Mariners fans oh, Munoz should have made it. I'm like, guys, if Munoz should have made it, then Gaddis should be there, as he's got a lower ERA and a higher WAR. There's cases
Gaddis.
with this. I mean, Griffin Jacks from Minnesota, one can make. Cleveland has 3 of the top 7 relievers in baseball right now, and 3 of the top 5 in the American League. To me, the biggest snubs are, is there anyone outside the relievers? Gaddis and Smith are really the only 2 guys that I think I was pleasantly surprised for Fry. That's great for him. All I could see though, again, with Fry and Quad and Naylor, is dollar signs going up, dollar signs going up.
Of course.
The
Naylor thing's going to get interesting, obviously.
And guaranteed they're going to trade him this offseason. You got an all-star, but he's going to be gone in a few months.
You just lost a bunch of listeners because you got.
I know, but it's the way this stuff works. It's the give and take. So, it's
in first place. He's playing well. They got 5 all-stars, and
his brother is turned it around. It completely changed the lineup in that one.
Huge hit on Sunday, and we'll get into that as well. We'll talk about the games. The David Fry thing is incredible, and I even said this on Twitter the other day. So I don't think you were a huge believer in Sam Hentges either, and this isn't really about Sam Hentges, but when those two were out of options the same year, and I believe that JC Mejia gave them a better chance to find a starter in that rotation.
I agree.
I said, and I was like, I think Mejia's got more starter stuff. I'd hang on to him. So that if the Guardians, if I was running the Guardians, if they listen to me,
in fairness, he had better numbers that year too.
He did.
In fairness,
he did. But thank God they don't listen to me, and I don't have anything to do. I just sit here and talk. But in my version of the world, Sam Hentges would be somewhere else. The Guardians might not have David Fry. They wouldn't have JC Mejia because he's suspended for steroids, and this whole thing would look terrible. So they only have 4 all-stars. But
can you imagine a world too? Can we maybe be thankful there was the lockout? Should we maybe be thankful there was a lockout because
David Fry did not go in the Rule 5 draft?
Could have gotten in the Rule 5 draft, as could have Joey Cantillo. 2 guys, we'll see if Cantillo helps the team out or not.
Gone.
But they're both likely gone. So the fact that we had a lockout means Cantillo and Fry are here. So hey, let's turn lemons into lemonade, right?
You're looking at the positive side of things.
Fry and Cantillo, it's because that was the whole reason that trade didn't get announced, because it was hey, if no one takes Fry. But then again, the next year, wasn't he exposed before was he in Cleveland 2 years before they decided to add him? I mean, he
didn't play he was in AAA the first year only.
Yeah, so then they didn't add him. Well, let's see. So he wasn't
even on 40 until he came up last year.
Yeah, so they didn't add him after 22. So who knows? But you and I always stood by the fact that we were even in 22, we were call the guy up. They could use a lefty masher who can be a third catcher. He's better than the third catchers they're running out there type of situation. Right. And hey,
Neighbors Valoria. Does that ring a bell? It probably shouldn't, right?
It does, unfortunately. Neighbors Valoria, Mike Zanino, and
he did exist at one time on the Guardians.
Yeah, I mean when they were running 3 catchers with Maley a year ago, right? But yeah, it's a situation where, I mean, good on him. Hopefully, he's not as red hot as he was. This is kind of a little bit of a coming to earth, but he's still performing well. So hey, let it go. It's
a great story. Again, it's the same thing as it's a great blueprint for Daniel Schneemann, right? If somehow he gets more playing time next year.
But at the same time, Fry was at least a 7th round pick. He was a day 2 guy. Schneemann was the 33rd round.
Day 3. Yeah,
was it Tim Herron is the 29th round. They've made it with some lung shots. Nope.
Yeah.
Long shots.
So that wouldn't help. What's crazy is Fry always performed in the minors. If you look at his stats and teams don't always look at stats, and sometimes these stats can lie, but his numbers were always positive in the minors. He had some issues chasing, and that's what he's fixed.
But they were solid.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. It's there's my line. Here's the thing. One thing I've always said is when you are a bad team, take these risks. Like I liked when Oakland took Kai Tom on the Rule 5 because that guy just hit, and it didn't work out. Like it didn't work. But you know what's worked out? Fry and Schneemann right now for Cleveland, guys who just hit. So it's great that Cleveland is doing it, and these guys have been lifesavers. But at the same time, it's like this is what bad teams should sign 1-year deals with free agents to flip them, and they should take risks on guys who perform consistently in the minors. Don't go for like the big prospect who has failed. Go for the guy who has not failed and see if you can find the next Fry, the next Schneemann.
Solid numbers that have not just been given
next
a chance.
Casey Blake.
Absolutely.
You know, like there's a long history of these guys.
And that's 2 of these guys right there. Now Fry's an all-star, so that's awesome. Yep. And it's in Texas. It's his home state. That's a fantastic story. There's every story of these. I mean, Josh Naylor, I hope Josh Naylor does the home run derby. That'd be a lot of fun. The guy swings hard every time. So I would get a kick out of that. We'll see what happens there. And look, this is going to be a lot of fun. The Guardians need to play well going into the All-Star break. They're in first place. Keep it going. But this should be a fun week coming up. You've got 5 All-Stars. You've got 2 prospects in the prospect game, and you have the number 1 pick in the draft. So we're going to be all over that all week.
Before we go to break,
tons of fun.
I want to throw one thing. Justin, when we come back, David Fry doesn't have the highest WAR in Northwestern State University of Louisiana history.
Oh, I'm not going to get that. I'm not going to get this play right now.
It's Brian Lawrence, but I want you to think about who his teammate in AAA and in college was from that program.
Oh, boy. All right. Well, I guess we'll answer that question on the other side. So stick around for that and more stuff about the weekend. We're going to talk about Angel Martinez. We'll talk about Spencer Howard, all that good stuff. Okay, Prize Picks. You know, I love them. So here's the thing. There is multiple ways you can handle Prize Picks. I am looking at the list for tomorrow. Where did you go, Jose Ramirez? Are you no longer? There you go. So Cleveland is facing a pitcher I am really not familiar with from Detroit. Jose Ramirez has a fantasy score of 8. I think he can make that score. I would advise you to go more, but then there's part of me that says, hey, go less because, hey, if he has a bad day, at least you get a positive either way. Like hedge your bet on performance. Remember, when it comes to Prize Picks, it is as simple as more or less. That's all you do. You pick more or less on stat categories like game score, which is a composite one. So head over to Prize Picks today, download the app or go to the website, use the code LOCKEDONMLB, all lowercase, all one word, for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, that's LOCKEDONMLB, all lowercase, all one word, for a first deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. Locked On Guardians, we pride ourselves on getting you the latest news, whether it's the offseason, the draft, which we're always talking about, spring training, and the playoffs, which we will be talking about sometime soon in the second half. Tax collection season is year-round. Just because the tax season's over doesn't mean the IRS will stop coming after you for unfiled taxes. They will garnish your wages. They will levy your bank accounts, and they will even seize your property. I've seen it. Don't let the IRS target you. Let the licensed professionals and tax experts at Tax Network USA go to bat for you. As 1099ers, and I've talked about it multiple times, I work out of state full-time. It was my day job, so I have to file all kinds of complicated tax stuff, pay all kinds of people. My secret girlfriend, Rita, I have to go and pay her all kinds of money because of that situation. So that's a tough one for me. I need experts to help me out. And the Tax Network USA pros have over 14 years of experience and an A+ rating by the Better Business Bureau. And they have saved their clients over $1 billion in tax debts. Whether you owe taxes, have complicated matters that require tax planning like I do, or you finally hit that parlay this season and need help filing correctly, call 1-800-549-1000 or visit tnusa.com/lockedon. And make sure to mention Locked On Guardians at checkout. We'll also receive $250 discount off Tax Network USA services. And Guardians are back in action on Monday at 6:40. So check out the action on your SiriusXM app. Just search Guardians for Gavin Williams versus Keeter Montero. Jeff was talking about a pitcher he wasn't familiar with. Shame on you for not knowing Keeter Montero. I was a big fan of his in the minors. Hasn't really happened in the majors yet for him, but I've seen him since his West Michigan days, and I'm intrigued. I'll say that's about as far
directional Michigan pitcher. Surprised they don't have more knowledge of one of the directional Michigans.
Yes, exactly. All right. So what team am I thinking about here? At Northwest State or AAA?
Both.
Who in Columbus?
Not there anymore. But there is a
he
player.
Was in Columbus. He
was in Columbus. They may not, I'm starting to think that maybe they didn't overlap. So I'll give it away. It's Adam Oler.
Oh, he is gone now. Adam Oler is gone.
Yeah.
Wow. So they are both Northwest Michigan or Northwest Alabama.
Northwest Louisiana.
Okay.
Not Cheetos. It's a thing.
Not shot. Oh,
But
don't ask me.
yeah, Brian Lawrence, highest WAR. It's over 9. Fries at about a
He was a good
1.8.
reliever for a little bit. Yeah, good for
So
Brian
like
Lawrence. Okay.
he's got some room to be the greatest player in the history of the program, but he's got a chance.
Is he the first All-Star?
I gotta think so. I don't think Brian Lawrence ever made it. I
All
closed
right.
that tab out, but
David Fry needs a building or a gym named after him at this college. Is what we're
he's
saying.
got to get a nice extension first. Start making
Nice
the real
extension.
money.
Yeah. Well, he's too expensive, as Jeff said already. Good series win for the Guardians over the Giants. The Giants have had a pretty up and down year. They've gotten better lately. They've had a very weird rotation situation. They've had a lot of injuries. Blake Snell, that didn't work out for them. Their lineup's been pesky.
Blake Snell kind of hasn't worked out for anyone. Like,
yeah,
he's
except
had
for those
his
2
up
seasons he
years,
won a Cy
but
Young.
Yeah, it's like, man,
his 2 good years he won a Cy Young, and the rest of it's been kind of iffy. But this was a hard fought win for the Guardians. I mean, every game was a 1-run game. I'm sorry, Friday was a 4-2 game, which again, Friday they could have won that game. They were 0 for 11 with runners in scoring position, and people were telling me, well, hitting the scoring position, like that's a skill, and that's you have to own your craft to do it. So I guess because Stephen Kwan didn't get hit with running scoring position on Friday, he's not a very skilled hitter. That looking at Friday's box score just in general, they had 11 hits and they had a bunch of walks. They had like 16 chances, 16 base runners. That usually equates to like, I don't know, 4 or 5 runs. They should have at least tied that game. They had multiple chances.
Yeah, but every 3 equals 3
base
run.
runners.
Yeah.
So even if you go by 4, they had 16. That's still 4 runs. That ties the game. You see what happens from there. So could have been a sweep. That's okay. Saturday they found a way to win, even though it wasn't a great day. Logan Allen was kind of iffy. We'll get to him in the second segment. But the offense came through. You had a huge hit from Jhonkensy Noel, who we're going to talk about in a little bit as well. And then Sunday, you got the big blow by Bo Naylor off the bench. That was really fun. Really good to see him turning around. He's having a good July so far. I think we both believe the bat would come around sooner than later. I never thought I'd be talking about Bo Naylor as a major league catcher and he would be great defender, bat still behind. Like it was always the other way around in the minors. But the bullpen came through big on Sunday as well on the weekend. To me, the person that stood out all weekend, Jeff, though, was Angel Martinez. Just unbelievable. He's put in the 2-hole. He's still 20, 22, 23. Is he 22 still? 23? I think he's 22. Just does not chase anything. Like, it's not like you always wonder with these chase rates and walk rates in the minors, like we always talk about now, is how little they translate anymore. Because you wonder if they're just laying off non-competitive pitches.
Yeah, how much is passivity versus
right. And it's not with Angel. Like, I think there is some passivity there, but his chase rate is like 17%. Like, he does not go out of the zone for anything. He just looks very mature in the box. He's hitting the ball well. He's had some big hits. He runs well. I know he had the airmailed throw at third base, which is, whatever. I think there's a reason they're trying him in the outfield a little bit more, but it's hard not to be impressed with how well he's fitting into A, hitting second, and B, just, he didn't play a lot the first time around in a week stint, and comes up here and plays second. He plays third. He plays outfield, and just he looks like he belongs right away, which doesn't always happen for a 22-year-old.
Yeah, he's been a lot of fun when you're looking at the overall performance, the high walk rates, getting on base. I mean, the fact that they just sat there and like, yep, okay, you're going to be in the most important part of the lineup. Now, at the same time, they did do that with Freeman there for a while as well. So they are kind of letting guys,
a little bit,
try it out. But yeah, he is, offensively, he's doing it. We'll have to see. The question was always, 2 years ago, I use another one of my expressions. 2 years ago, you and I both had him, I believe, the number 2 hitting prospect in the system behind Naylor. And then
a great 2022 season. Yeah.
Last year was kind of a mess for him. It was kind of a bit of a slip year, and we moved off, but he was bat first, defense second. And there's, questions of position where he'd end up, but we're seeing why, he is was such a highly regarded player. And I talked about it on the radio, maybe someone like myself moved off of him too quickly, like I moved off of Naylor too quickly after a bad year. AA is a hard adjustment. It's probably the hardest adjustment outside the majors. I think it goes majors, AA, then AAA.
There, though.
I think it's getting there, yeah.
AAA is just getting harder because of the gap between the majors and AAA anymore. But yeah, I know. I agree. I dropped him as well in my rankings coming off that year. But to his credit, again, this is the same thing with Kwan. He made off-season changes. The stance is different. My biggest thing though is the plate discipline. Last year he was running in AAA. It was only 154 plate appearances, but a 40% chase rate. As we know, not great, not a great number.
Yeah.
It was only 30% this year in 114 plate appearances in the minors, and right now it's at 17. Do I think it's going to be that low going forward? Probably not, but I think it tells you it's going to be at a very healthy rate. And he always walked in the minors anyway. The questions for him was all about how much is he going to hit? Is it, because you have the guys like, not to bag on Ernie Clement, like, are you getting a hit tool that's a lot of contact and no sting behind it? Or is it going to be a guy who can actually hit the ball how he's supposed to? And I think he is showing that he can. He's not going to light up with exit velocities, but he can go out and hit the ball hard when he needs to and make the right kind of contact. Again, like a Stephen Kwan, you're turning that stuff, the contact, into something that has a little bite behind it. And I think that's what we're going to see from him. I also like Steeman hitting second. Like Angel's fitting in well there, but I also like Steeman hitting there.
Steeman walks, which is a nice component.
Yeah, he
strikes
out. I think he has a little more swing and miss in his game than a lot of guys on this team, which is fine. They have enough contact guys where they can make that work. But in the 2-hole, I like a guy who can walk and he can hit for power and set up Ramirez with runners on base. Ramirez had kind of a tough weekend himself, but not obviously not that big of a deal. But they need to find a guy that fits there. And right now it's Martinez. Give credit to Vogt though for giving those opportunities to guys. Like, he gave it to Freeman and it worked for a little bit. He's been dealing with a sore wrist. He's been kind of coming back down to earth offensively. And then he put Steeman in there, and that has worked to an extent. And he's put Martinez in there, and Martinez is a switch hitter, so that also really helps. So credit to Vogt for doing that, and credit to the guys for not making it a big deal. Like, it could be very hard for a young player or a player with not a lot of major league experience to go up there and press and try to be something they're not hitting in that role. So Vogt not only trusts them, but those guys are showing that trust is deserved too. So credit goes both ways there. That's, again, this is stuff that a team that wouldn't be in first place would be doing, but they're doing it and it's working, which is all the more fun.
Yeah, it's, again, it's giving guys who have performed well opportunities, or in the case of Martinez respects, it's like the opposite. Like, he just didn't get a lot of opportunities since he's been healthy, but he was already on the 40-man. You've already burned the option. Let's see what you got. So if you're healthy and available, they're going to give you a try. And if you take advantage of that opportunity, which might also contribute to some guys pressing, but I think we're seeing some very positives with it.
Yeah, they're fitting in well for young players. It's really fun to see. All right, we want to talk a little about Noel. We'll talk about Brennan as well, and when he comes back and what happens to the roster spot. We have to get into Logan Allen being sent to AAA, and why is Spencer Howard here? We'll try to figure that answer out as well as best as we can. For guys who don't really know a whole lot of anything, we'll find out. It is the middle of summer. I know I enjoy the All-Star game and the Home Run Derby. I will be looking for bets on that stuff as much as I can. And for some people, this is the time of year where sports isn't sporting as much as we'd like. But FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All we have to do is open that app, dream up bets anytime we're in the mood. If you're into FanDuel, they have lots of stuff on there for you. Again, go on there, do some All-Star picks during the Home Run Derby. You can do some of that stuff. They have odds on the draft as well. So there's lots of things to do when it comes to baseball and betting. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. So there's something for everybody all day, all summer long. Just open the app and find out what looks fun to you. FanDuel is going to give you that booster bonus. So head over to FanDuel.com. Make the most out of your summer. FanDuel is an official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. I also want to tell you about Locked On Sports today. It is the first 24/7 streaming sports channel on YouTube and the Amazon Fire TV apps as well. No screaming, no yelling unless it's really exciting stuff. And it's all hosted by experts and hosts that know your team the most because they're local hosts. So they're going to know your team the best. That's where you want to go to get the info. Go to Locked On Sports today on YouTube, streaming 24/7, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Jhonkensy Noel has not played every day. He's played mostly against lefties. I don't think we'll spend a whole lot of time on this, but I'm just going to say, Jeff, I think he is who we thought he was. Like, everyone is. I'm enjoying the home runs, and I think everybody should enjoy the home runs. The chase rate is 50%. I don't expect that to be something that is not going to come back to burn him. It's definitely going to come back to burn him, but I'm okay personally giving it a run and seeing if you can make those changes. Because again, the options are an issue after this year. They have other guys in the lineup. If he gets a strike, he can hit a home run, and some guys in this team can't do that. And I'm okay with seeing it and seeing if it crashes and burns or if it works out and he makes adjustments. I don't know. I've been saying this all along. I think it's worth a chance at this point with where this roster is and what they need and what they don't need. And it's going to be hard to overcome that chase rate, I think, long term, but I'm willing to see if he can find a way.
There's no way anyone can maintain that chase rate is the problem.
No.
Javi Baez is at a 40 and we're talking about someone at a 50. This is a lot of fun. And if he catches up to a mistake, he's going to absolutely destroy it. He hits the ball hard. He's got a good launch angle. He's also had some of the worst at bats I've seen all year. There's the one at bat where there were 2 pitches that bounced in front of him that he swung at. Like, eventually pitchers are going to realize that they can. You don't have to be near the
strike.
Yeah, this is not a guy. So yeah, ride him now. It's fine right now, but once the rest of the league catches up to it, essentially do what you did with Oscar Gonzalez, where it's like, okay, we know this is unsustainable. And a month after the league caught up, he was back in AAA. And this is this situation where you're right, he's out of options. So see what he can do. If the league catches up, well, then you figured out your situation, and at the end of the year, it's probably
you learn
goodbye and thanks for all the fish. But you're just going to sit back and you're seeing. And if Valera was ever healthy, he would get an opportunity as well. Too. But right now, you run with it. But I'm curious. You can read the Chiron down there type of situation where it's like when Brennan comes back. Because do they switch out outfielder for outfielder, or do they make Brennan Noel a platoon? But they've also
that makes a lot of sense to me.
The one thing I'll say is like Schneemann has played so much outfield that it's like all of a sudden they have a bunch of outfielders. He's almost been more of an outfielder than an infielder, it feels like to me, but that could be anecdotal. So it's like, what are you going to do with all these guys? And then the other. You and I can debate. We've debated off air the whole Arias of it. The one advantage Arias has over the rest of these infielders is being right-handed and actually having good. He's got a 98 weighted runs created plus this year against right-handed pitching. And the other thing you can say is, like, honestly, a year ago he was good. Like, people don't like to hear that, but a year ago he had like a 115 weighted runs created plus against righties. None of our infielders have proven they can even sniff that so far. Like Freeman is right now doing a Miles Straw impersonation, what they expected Miles Straw to be. Let me clarify. People are going to get mad at me, but like that, like 80, 90 weighted runs created plus, that's what they expected Straw to do. It didn't happen at all, not even close. So, he is struggling to produce. Rokia was struggling to find consistent production. Gabby put together a year that none of these guys have done yet. So it's a hard situation. I think the biggest problem is, and I'll be quiet here, is what we talked about off air, is that Gabby and Rocchio should never broke camp with the team. I know they need a right
one
hand
or the
back.
other.
I know that's why Gabby was here, but it led to nothing good. It's the expression I can't say is, go to get off the pot or do something else. And they were like half on, half off. And it's just led to a disgusting mess.
Yeah. They committed to Rocchio at shortstop, and they committed to Arias doing whatever this is. And you're right. It's not helpful for him. I think it's out of fear he's still here. I think it's out of fear that he would go somewhere else and thrive, which is very possible. You and I have said all along, he has the talent to thrive. He has a lot more upside than Rocchio. He has the better glove at shortstop, more range, better arm, the best arm on the team of anybody, truthfully. And he has more power upside. It's just there's not a fit right now. They've committed to Rocchio, which means they probably should have sent Arias to AAA, or they just sort of said, we're going to cut bait, and if we make a mistake, we make a mistake. And now his value probably has cratered even more if you try to move him, because you can't really send the AAA without moving him, because if you send the AAA, you're just admitting that his time here is probably done, so you're going to move on from him. I think that's
and there's a good chance he goes to AAA instead of using it as a jump off. It could just be some guys do not respond well, and he does not feel like a guy is going to.
It could create a lot of friction between. There's already been friction in the past here.
I don't even know if it's like friction as much as he. Like, I just feel like he's. he's
What's he
just
going to
not going to
prove?
try.
What's he going to
You
prove in
know,
AAA?
it's
Yeah,
not going to be a positive
he
environment.
needs
for him.
MLB at bats. I just think there's not a fit right now unless you say Rocchio has to go to AAA, and then because I just don't think the super utility role really benefits Arias. So yeah, you have to either figure
And they're
out.
already using Schneemann now in that role, even though
Yeah,
he's like a lefty and not a righty.
I would probably move on from Arias when Brennan comes back because you can platoon Brennan and Noel. Schneemann can play center against righties, Freeman against lefties. You have Martinez and Freeman and Schneemann all to cover the infield. Plus, you have David Fry who can play third in a pinch.
I think maybe the reason for not is what you're saying there is like that's a lot of guys you got to find playing time for, right? And Gavi's right now a guy they don't
not necessarily. No, because against righties you have Brennan and Schneemann in center and Brennan in right, and then against.
But you're really not
gonna.
So then you're gonna have Freeman play like twice a week. Go back to that situation.
You mix and match, and again, you see what works best against that day's starting pitcher.
I just think what you're talking about is having 5-6 guys share 2 positions is going to be hard to do. I think if it's Gabby or not Gabby, you kind of need one of your bench guys to be a guy who is not, who plays once a week and you're okay with it.
Yeah. It's up to them to figure it out. They've done a good job of doing that so far. I trust them to continue to do it no matter what the situation is when Brennan comes back. Quickly on Spencer Howard, the only thing I can look at is the slider was good a year ago in a very limited sample, and he has extension. He doesn't walk. I think that's the thing they're looking for. Is looking maybe for someone who doesn't walk as many guys, so they can maybe get some more length out of a starter. The extension is not as good as Ben Lively, but it's close, so maybe there's that. And I don't know if this is going to be a long-term thing. I think for Logan Allen, this is more of I think it's a temporary reset. I think he goes and gets 1 or 2 starts in AAA. He works on stuff. He catches a
All-Star break.
Yeah, I think it's a temporary thing. He does need to get better with his control. They can't have him going out there and not making 5 innings every night because he can't find the strike zone. So I think it's not as bad as McKenzie, but they need him to work on some things. So I think this Howard thing is kind of a temporary situation right now to work on something with Allen. And it was just the only move that made sense for the time being.
Through his career, he's had good extension, not great extension, just good, but he's not very good. Like, he's this guy who didn't miss bats at college at Cal Poly and then got overhyped because he missed a lot of bats in the low minors. And then he had very, very low track record in AA. And then we had the pandemic and he kind of got moved along quickly. He's probably a guy that got overhyped, for being honest. I don't necessarily see the appeal as outside of, hey, they probably liked him more than they liked, some of the guys they let go.
Yeah, I think it's a temporary thing, but we'll find out more about that. We will find out more about this week as the draft. Jeff and I have been talking to people about what's going to happen at 1-1, what we hear going on, and we'll get into that conversation tomorrow. We'll also get into more about if underslotting actually works. We've looked at a lot about the history of what teams have done and what they haven't done. Of course, what the Guardians have done and what they haven't done. So we're going to get into that this week as well. Probably very heavily on Tuesday's episode. We're hoping to land a guest maybe this week and also for the draft as well. We'll get into more draft coverage, what we're going to do there. But we've got a lot of stuff ahead when it comes to the draft, the trading deadline. It's going to be a really fun month. I'm really excited about it, and I hope you guys are with us to do it all because it's more fun. We have lots of listeners, and you guys are enjoying it. So let us know if you're looking forward to it, and let us know what you want to hear about as well when it comes to the draft and the trading deadline, all that good stuff.
So thank you for joining us. As always, rating and reviewing, downloading it helps. Make sure you're subscribed, leave an iTunes review, and go Guardians, go.